Hello and welcome, I'm Tafarra Gadamu. In less than 2 weeks, Ethiopians will go to the polls. But is the election going to be free, fair, and peaceful? My guest today, the Government Communications Affairs Minister, says there's no other choice. A very warm welcome to the program, Redwan Hussein.
Thank you for having me.
It's election time, and there's several issues at stake here. Is it going to be another 2010 where the EPRDF would have a sweeping majority in parliament? What is the expectation like? Of course, you are campaigning to win, but are you prepared to lose some of your constituencies, perhaps?
That's up to the voters to decide, but we are doing our level best to convince the heart and mind of the voters, and I think we are doing fine.
Okay, so you're trying to win the hearts and minds of voters based on a platform of promises or on what you've achieved in the past?
We do it based on our track record. In the last 24 years, EPRDF has brought about democracy, which is based on diversity. So people have every right to be masters of their own destiny. And this country has been achieving, especially in the last decade, back successive achievements, which is stupendous stride. And millions of people have been brought to the affluence. That's a well record that EPRDF has to capitalize on, and it's based on popular movement, which is millions of people have been uplifted from abject poverty. Though there are a number of poor people, which we still have to take care of, but millions of others have tried and brought about successive achievements.
Well, that's interesting because the others had never had any chance to prove themselves right or wrong along that line, because they've never had held any power, they've never had any meaningful representation in parliament, and so on and so forth. So do you think that the field is... you have a fair...
Sure. I think the field must be judged and weighed based on certain defined yardsticks, which is whether each and every party has the airspace to convey its message to its constituency, whether each and every party has the right and opportunity to go to the constituency and talk to the people, whereby its message and the ideals it stands for could be heard and listened by the voters. That is already there. We've been campaigning both. We have a televised device, I think, which is not precedented before. We have a 9 televised debate, which is not common even in developed democracies. We see 2 or 3 televised devices, in some cases 1. Ours is 9, which is at the national level. When you go to the regional level, a number of regional political parties do also have their own campaign and also debates. That would mean a lot to bring about level field.
But the opposition argue that the airtime that has been allotted, I'm talking about, for example, Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation and the radio stations and so forth, pretty much favors the ruling party.
As you said, some of them said it's only once that their campaign production was turned away, and that was due to legal basis. There are a number of areas which every party should respect. You cannot belittle democratic institutions. You cannot abet the use of the public to raise against one another. Those sort of issues must be taken seriously by the media houses, not to entertain. It has nothing to do with censorship, but it has to do with respecting the law.
So, but are they addressed? Are their concerns addressed, you think? Because we've got, less than 2 weeks to go to election time, casting our ballots.
Yeah, as we've heard from the Board of Election, it received about 48 complaints, and they were all addressed. With regards to the media houses, some of the issues were actually addressed, because this time what we did was we tried to convince all media houses to even render their studios for the political parties which do not have one, to assist them in the production by giving information and all the documents if they need to. So that's quite a help for political parties if they want to capitalize on and make the best use of it.
And time is running out. And the last campaign, a week before election time, campaigning stops, right?
Sure.
So whoever hasn't done their job before that will never have the chance to do it again.
Exactly. So it's up to all political parties to make the best use of every minute that they have in a responsible fashion and in a lawful manner. If every party tried that, then I think that was what's expected.
So how do you gauge the pre-election process overall from your party's perspective?
We've tried to stage a number of rallies and discussion forums, both at the grassroots level and at the regional and national level. We managed to use our airtime properly. I think we've covered 98% of our time and also both columns. So we did our level best with that regard. So
are you aiming to take over the parliament again, or what is the possible scenario going to be?
There is no a single...
I'm coming back again to my first question. Are you prepared to lose some of your constituencies?
We're not prepared to lose any seat, but if the voters decide that, we are ready to accept it. But there is no single seat that we forfeited. We do our level best to win every seat in legal means. If as I said, won the heart and mind of the voters, and if the voters all decided to vote for us, that's okay. But I don't think every voter would vote for us because it has never been the case. Sometimes people tend to conflate the number of seats won with the number of votes gained. Even the international media and some of our Western friends would conflate that one. If you look at Addis in the last election, there were about 1 million something voters, and 430,000 of them did not vote for APRD. What went wrong was the opposition was scattered, too meager, too tiny to win a single seat. But if they add up their votes together, a number of seats could be won by the opposition than APRD. So winning the seat doesn't necessarily mean you won 100% of the voters' vote. So that must be clear. So we are not ready to, lose willingly, but if voters decide that, then we have to come to terms.
But that's what the opposition, the government, they say, does not want us to have a unified voice.
I think if any opposition claims that, it's simply shooting itself in the foot. Because if we are too porous, then there was not esprit de corps, there was no a glue that holds you together. So that glue that holds you together could easily come away with any external pressure if it was there, but it was not there. The problem is, for you to stand together, you need to have an ideal whereby every member, at least leaders of that entity, agree with and see above their individual presence and needs. So if you come with all your grudge without having an ideal that you stand for, that you strive to achieve, then whichever congregation you have, whichever group you make, you easily splinter, and that's what we've been witnessing in Ethiopian opposition.
But the opposition says the political space has now narrowed significantly the last few years. Is it just a mere allegation or something that holds water?
It's simply too bogus to be tenable. If you look at what happened after 2005 election, a number of procedures and rules have been changed to incorporate the needs of opposition parties so that would broaden the political spectrum. If you go to the parliament, there were a number of changes that were made after 2005 election, like an opposition day was installed. There was also a question day whereby all the minister and prime minister has to come to the parliament to be questioned, and opposition was assigned a seat, one standing committee, that is the resource, the budget committee, to be run by the opposition. And there was also a conciliatory forum whereby opposition leaders would come and set an agenda in the parliament with the House of Speaker. This is the one. So in all those issues, oppositions were there, and then debating and arguing for a long period of time. When it comes to also the Board of Election, the law gives the prerogative to the Prime Minister, but now it was also somehow revised so that the views of opposition could be incorporated in the vetting process of the board members of electoral board. So all these are improvements toward this, the benefit of all in broadening the political spectrum.
But all said, it's very difficult to stage for the opposition to stage demonstrations. The media climate, they say, has changed. The anti-terrorism law is in place, and all these things are geared towards stifling their work, their activities, and so on. That's what they say.
They say, but I don't get a dozen hold drop of water. There is an iota of truth in it. If you look at the anti-terrorism law, that creates a space for everybody who really mean to run for its causes in a peaceful manner, because it clears detractors. It clears those who would would create havoc and create mass killings and sabotage of the whole legal system. If that is okay, and if you really mean to run your cause in a peaceful manner, it would mean a plus for your activities to peacefully and confidently run around. The other issue, when you come to the media, if their track record speaks, there are a number of medias which gives them space. Let's forget about the rest. Let's talk about this campaign time. It's not a single opposition party used 60% of its allotted time. Not a single party. When you add up all the political parties, they only used 51%, where APRDF used 98%. And there are about 8 political parties which never even used, which never even touched. It's a 0% of utilization. So it's not about lack of space. It's about lack of ideas. It's about lack of tenable agenda which stand for a certain segment of society. So look at any opposition parties. They are grouped with some sort of grudge of whichever reason that they might have. Their agenda doesn't call for peasantry. Their agenda doesn't call for the youth. Their agenda doesn't call for the middle class, the labor, or it doesn't call for that of the private sector. They simply bring about all the issues, all the dust that could be thrown to the ruling party, and the dust somehow settles. It keeps on settling. Then you run out of the agenda to rally any segment of a society. That, I think, is the problem.
But hasn't that improved, because you too run on a platform of promises, minus the achievements that you've registered, that you've used in your own campaigns? All parties run a platform of promises.
When you make promises, you have to make sure that one promise you make here doesn't go against the promise that you make for the other segment. When you promise democracy, now democracy which we mean in Ethiopia is democracy based on diversity. Now, unless you embrace that diversity, whichever promise that you make to bring about democracy, it doesn't work. If you are averse to have this multinational, multicultural diversity, then there is no way that you can hold this country together. So it's not only making a promise. Anybody can make a promise. But when it adds up, does it go in sync with one another? So that is the problem with the opposition.
So you think this election is going to be smooth? It's going to be democratic? Is that what you're promising? Is it going to be not as violent, seriously violent as we've seen 10 years ago, even less so in 2005?
There is no reason for this election to be violent. There isn't any. If you look at the voters, they have been thronged to be registered as voters. It's about 36.8 million. It's about 94% of eligible voters. Had the people not been able to see something in it, had they not been convinced that they are masters of their destiny, had they developed apathy in the electoral process, they wouldn't show up for voting as voters. So this is one thing. When you look at the political parties, there is about 58 political parties who are running. If political parties lose hope, they wouldn't show up for campaigning. They are in. If you look at the whole legal ground that has to be there, it's already been there. So there is no point, there is no reason for anyone to go for creating havoc. That doesn't be allowed. To run amok could not be condemned in any way. But I don't think there is any conducive ground and any earthly reason to go for riot.
No election observers from outside of this country?
There are. African Union observers are here. About 59 observers are here. 9 of them are already here. The rest are being expected to come.
Like the Carter Center and so on, the other institutions?
I think Carter Center was not ready this time, and Europeans first they announced that because of their economic problems that they have, they were not interested to come in. So we took that and then we didn't invite.
The media, one of the issues that your government is criticized by the people in the West, in North America, and so on, is that you are one of the worst jailers in the world. Zone 9 guys, these are young people trying